Manpower Planning, an Introduction. Human Resource Planning, or HRP, provides a strategic basis for taking HR decisions and anticipating change. It is not merely concerned with manpower demographics, turnover projections, succession planning, etc. Therefore, HRP helps to plan replacements and changes in manpower competencies in a systematic manner. Of late, HRP has become an important enterprise-wide strategic function not only to achieve goals and objectives, but also to sustain the present level in organizations. Globally, skill shortages, competency gaps, redundancies, downsizing, right-sizing are the major issues in today's organizations. Such syndromes have become so acute in Indian organizations also that almost every day we find newspapers carrying reports on job cuts or manpower redundancies. There are many reasons for such manpower or human resource redundancies, but the biggest problem lies with inadequate human resource planning. It follows from the previous slide that after studying this lesson, you should be able to analyze the concept of manpower planning, enumerate the steps in manpower planning, explain the objectives of manpower planning, define manpower demand forecasting and macro-level manpower planning. Manpower planning, which is also called as human resource planning, consists of putting right number of people, right kind of people at the right place, right time, doing the right things for which they are suited for the achievement of goals of the organization. Optimum manpower planning, therefore, aims at balancing demand, supply, distribution, and allocation of manpower, controlling cost of human resources, formulating policies on transfer, succession, reallocation of manpower. Manpower planning consists of a series of activities which can be listed as follows. Forecasting future manpower requirements, which is done either in terms of mathematical projections or in terms of judgmental estimates. Preparing an inventory of present manpower. Such inventory contains data about each employee's skills, abilities, work preferences, and other items of information. Anticipating problems of manpower, which can be done by projecting present resources into the future and comparing the same with the forecast of manpower requirements. Meeting manpower requirements can be achieved through planning, recruitment and selection, training and development, induction and placement, promotion and transfer, motivation and compensation to ensure that future manpower requirements are correctly met. HR department is entrusted with some important responsibilities like to put pressure on the operating management to plan and establish objectives, to collect data in total organization terms and to ensure that manpower planning is carried out, keeping pace with the long-range objectives and the total business plan of the organization, to measure and monitor performance against the plan and provide feedback to the top management, to carry out research for effective manpower and organizational planning. HRP or manpower planning involves a number of steps. Job analysis is done to differentiate one job from the other. Job is defined as collection or aggregation of tasks, duties, and responsibilities which are assigned to an individual employee. After the job analysis process is over, job description and job specification are developed before going into the successive steps of HRP. Job description is recording of duties, responsibilities, and conditions needed for satisfactory performance of a particular job. Both the terms job description and job specification are used interchangeably. Most of the organizations, after developing job descriptions and job specifications, develop work rules, which are some predetermined decisions about certain courses of action that may be taken when certain contingencies arise. Work study, method study, and work measurement techniques are also applied as a preceding step for HRP. These techniques provide opportunity for effective use of plant and equipment, effective use of human efforts, measurement of human work, better ways of doing things, developing predetermined standard time, etc. Other factors include layout, statutory requirements, shifts, and leave reserves. Subsequent objectives of manpower planning are to achieve efficiency of work in all spheres of the corporate body, to ensure cost minimization, to eliminate all types of wastages, including waste of time, to maintain required levels of skill and competency matching present and future needs of the organization. A performance analysis is generally called for when you want to improve a part of the organization or to fix a problem that someone has brought forth. Both are generally fixed in the same manner. Manpower demand forecasting is influenced primarily by two important factors, that is, volume of output and the level of productivity. Productivity has two major components, technological change and manpower utilization. As technological change requires huge capital investment, organizations look for better manpower utilization to achieve increased productivity. With better human relations, productivity can be increased. Manpower planning models at macro level is concerned more with the demand for jobs than with the supply side of the employment equation. Labor market models are used both for labor market analysis and to design labor market information systems. Both are dependent on each other. Manpower requirements approach is the dominant model of manpower planning. The three major steps in this model are A. Assessing the demand for manpower. B. Assessing the supply of manpower. C. Balancing the supply and demand. By establishing a linear relationship between the manpower category in different industry groups and their output, MRA helps us to project the demand for manpower at the macro level. For the educational planning at the national level, this approach is much in use in our country. RRA, or cost-benefit analysis of human capital, is applied to decide the aggregate investment requirement for different skill development. Cost and earnings of an individual over his productive life cycle is first computed and then the discounted value is estimated to assess the rate of return. Macbeth model is a recursive simulation model of the labor market and the evolution of occupational mismatches. This model is robust to data inconsistencies but straightforward for quick application. Particularly in a developing country like India, we have large-scale labor-related data inconsistencies. Labor market signaling advocates guiding of schooling and training decisions is based on the need for wage and employment trends. Thus, this approach evaluates the functioning of the labor markets, estimating upward or downward pressure on the economic returns to investment in specific skills. This approach can also focus on those skill and knowledge sets which are having strategic significance for the economic development of the country. A learning curve is a graphical representation of the changing rate of learning for a given activity or tool. Typically, the increase in retention of information is sharpest after the initial attempts and then gradually evens out, meaning that less and less new information is retained after each repetition. Labor economics seeks to understand the functioning and dynamics of the market for labor. Labor markets function through the interaction of workers and employers. Labor economics looks at the suppliers of labor services, the demanders of labor services, and attempts to understand the resulting pattern of wages, employment, and income. Now let us check if you have understood the various concepts discussed in this lesson clearly. A planning process by which an organization can move from its current manpower position to its desired manpower position is known as manpower planning. What do you call the list of the general tasks or functions and responsibilities of a position? Job description. What summarizes the human characteristics needed for satisfactory job? Job specification. Before we end, let us briefly revise what we have studied till so far. The manpower planning process not only limits its focus on assessment, but also tries to ensure that the required competency is maintained in line with organizational mission, vision, and strategic objectives. Human resource or manpower is a primary resource without which other resources, physical and financial, cannot be put into use. Even a fully automatic unit requires manpower to run it and also to plan for further improvement. To achieve any goal, manpower requirement needs to be assessed, located, and harnessed. HRP is not mere assessment of the number of men required. An organization has to categorize men as per their knowledge and skills and also ensure their balanced allocation. The manpower planning process includes job analysis, job description and specification, developing work rules and actual application. The primary objective of manpower planning is to integrate planning and control of manpower with organizational planning to ensure best possible utilization of all resources. Manpower demand forecasting is influenced primarily by two factors, that is, volume of output and level of productivity. Development of human resources is one of the important objectives of any country for long-term economic growth. For a developing economy like India, such importance is far more. Macro-level manpower planning is a complex and dynamic process, and it requires longitudinal study to understand the results of various policy measures and actions.